person. Trade policy. She expressed her views cogently in a speech on March 3rd, 1994. It was a time when the world trading system stood between the era of the GATT and the promise of a new World Trade Organization, the WTO. She was absolutely clear-eyed on the achievements of the former and the promise of the latter. Of course, she would talk of history, of Britain's choice to open its market with the repeal of the Corn Laws. She did not think that Robert Cobden got it wrong to open the British market for food. She did not think that Churchill and Roosevelt got it wrong when in the summer of 1941 at Argentia Bay, they said as a cornerstone of their war aims that the post-war global economy should be characterized by equal access to markets and to raw materials for all, a policy designed to underwrite a more durable peace. She understood the need for strong leadership, praising Arthur Dunkel and Peter Sutherland, the two individuals who had the vision and strength to bring the last great round of multilateral trade negotiations to a successful conclusion, which resulted in the creation of the WTO. She was absolutely clear that trade was what ordinary people wanted to do to better their lives, that it was not some artificial construct of experts. She did not see open markets as something solely of value to the world's largest economies. She saw it as a path forward for prosperity for small and large countries alike. She was focused on the success at that time of the economies that were known as Asian tigers, places like Hong Kong, Korea, and what was known to her at that time as Taiwan, each growing rapidly during the last third of the last century. She did not shrink from attacking rigidly centrally controlled economies that chose to have the state substitute its judgment for the market. She saw the need for curbing subsidies, for bringing services, intellectual property protection, and agriculture fully into the rules-based global trading system. She worried that preferential trading arrangements could well undermine the global system of non-discrimination and equal participation in trade. Margaret Thatcher gave these assessments over a quarter of a century ago, but they're just as fresh now as they were then. They have stood the test of time. We now have just over a quarter century of experience with the WTO, and the world's leaders have called for a reform of that organization. There is a need to be able to restore the negotiating function to the WTO as it was envisaged by its founders. There is a need to have, again, a dispute settlement system that is binding and recognized as legitimate by all. There is a need to have an institution with a strong executive to achieve full transparency with respect to national trade measures that affect trade, to make proposals, to break impasses in negotiations, and to help plan for the future, to meet global challenges such as pandemics and climate change. As Brexit was occurring, I had the privilege of being called upon to give my views on the proper role of an independent Britain in the world trading system. I testified before the International Trade Select Committee of the House of Commons. I met with officials of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and at number 10 Downing Street. There was a reasonable concern then that the views of Britain might not count for much, given the much larger shares of world trade represented by the European Union, the United States, and China. What I said to the people I met with is that when I first attended GATT meetings in the early 1970s, I heard that independent, strong, and articulate voice of the United Kingdom. And while that voice had been of value in Brussels, for the last 40 years, I very much welcomed its return to the deliberations on global trade now at the WTO. The world trading system that we benefit from is very much a heritage of the partnership of the United States and Great Britain, based on the same vision that Margaret Thatcher enunciated in her 1994 speech. That system is today fostered by WTO members, including prominently Australia, New Zealand, Canada, and Singapore, to name a few, each of which is a disciple of the Britain that fostered open markets. They believe in the precepts enunciated by Margaret Thatcher with respect to the benefits that the world trading system can provide and has so demonstrably provided. It should be seen as no accident that the United Kingdom has now applied to rejoin several of its Commonwealth countries and others in the CPTPP. This arrangement should be seen as a building block towards improvement of the multilateral trading system and as a further guarantee of opening of markets, and not as a means to replace the global trading system with a preferential arrangement. With the withdrawal of the United States from the forward-looking agreement, the Trans-Pacific Partnership, the inclusion in the CPTPP of the United Kingdom will contribute additional strength to what has been a regional agreement, had been and has been a regional agreement now, and it'll be a proto-global one. I was asked what Britain can contribute to the WTO. It can contribute to solutions to the major challenges the trading system faces today. Britain has just been host in COP26 to the world's largest gathering of countries concerned with the future of this planet in this era of global warming. In many respects, there is a vitally important trade component to the climate challenge. Carbon border adjustment mechanisms, CBAM, need to be deployed only within agreed international rules, or serious trade conflicts will erupt. The WTO is the only appropriate global venue for that effort. Sustainable development must be addressed as part of the solution to the challenge of climate change. The WTO has a global membership in which that task can and must be accomplished. Britain has much experience relevant to addressing the issues involved in the reform of the WTO. These are constitutional questions. By far the greatest challenge is to restore the deliberative and legislative functions of the organization. As having one of the oldest, if not the oldest, representative parliamentary bodies in the world, Britain is familiar with the frustrations of building consensus and the skills needed to achieve results. That experience can be very useful in finding a way forward to create anew the ability of the trading system to meet new challenges through producing new trade agreements. The second challenge is to make sure that the chief distinguishing feature of the world's trade institution is once again the enforceability of rules to which all have agreed. Britain has fresh experience with the delicate balance of national sovereignty with a judicial system outside of its national boundaries. Finding a solution for dispute settlement is an extraordinarily difficult task, but it's a very necessary one, as WTO members must again be able to rely fully on the enforceability of the WTO's rules. The third element of reform is the creation of a strong executive with an independent voice to bring about solutions to provide full transparency with respect to national measures that affect trade and to aid in the enforcement of rules. Britain has long experience with the evolution of executive powers with a sovereign parliament, as well as having created a body of corporate governance law that can inform the task of building an institutional structure to better serve world trade. I conclude that Britain, acting within the construct of Margaret Thatcher's clear vision of a world trading system that she knew, without doubt, would best serve the world's peoples, can and should exercise a global leadership role. Working with those WTO members who are like-minded, Britain should make improvement of the multilateral trading system a reality. It can do so, and I hope it will. Thank you very much.
Okay, so can you tell me what do you get from this? This is something I've discussed with you actually before, or I made a prediction. like, at the start of the IPE just a few days ago, last week, after the COP26. So, okay, all right. Some more? Anyone else can tell me? Can anyone tell me what exactly you get out of this? Now, very important for you to take note of this particular video. Although it's very monotonous, right? But you can go to YouTube, you type the state of the World Trade Organization. Then you have Alan Wolf there. To listen to it again. Okay? Why I need to show you this? Because we have reached that turning point. We have already passed that turning point, I would say. We're in a new era without a lot of people in the men in the street understanding this. So I'm just helping you to stay ahead of the curve. The New World Order is in the process of forming. Okay, I'm not saying that the nexus of the British and American partnership is gone. It is actually reworking to a new kind of partnership. And I need you to really think about this carefully, not just for the sake of exams, but for your life, especially if you are living in Singapore. We are very Anglo-sized in that sense. So there will be a change in terms of leadership. If you heard what he said very clearly, there's a change of leadership. And that's something that the first, second, third generation of PAP leaders didn't prepare for. The fourth generation definitely didn't prepare because we are always in a compliance mode for the first three generations. So the fourth generation are so used to having the United States becoming the leader in terms of policy. Now, what is it that you hear from this? You say Britain will go back to its roots of free trade, and the particular person will be, who would they take? Huh? Thatcherism. Okay, Margaret Thatcher will be the person that Thatcherism will be taking precedence. So if you want to study more about what the world should be and will be, somewhat understanding how it might be, then you will have a better understanding. So what is it? It's a real liberal order again, but to what extent the state will be involved? Okay, will we see socialism? I doubt it. We will see a clash of ideology. You can see the maneuvers between the Russians and the Chinese. They are having some partnership going on there. They are actually trying to campaign for their political ideology of what state intervention should be, how regionalism should be. Okay, that is their role of the way of looking at things. Okay, so it's very important to go back to 1934 then to see what happened. So this is lecture 12 slide here. Okay, so anyone got anything to say first? Because I always hear our students got a lot of things to say. Then if I don't let them say, they say I'm not democratic. So maybe you want to tell me what you think of that video. Anyone got anything to say? So what exactly tells us that Britain will be the leader? Maybe I should ask you that question. Take 2 minutes to think about this. What do you think in that video that you heard exactly was mentioned to tell us that Britain will be taking the lead? Instead of just besides looking at Thatcherism as the way forward, what exactly in that video you heard that tells us Britain will be taking the lead instead of United States of America? So America takes a back seat, Britain takes the front seat now. What is it? 3 minutes? This is very important because you're going to write about a trading system. I'm very sure. You're going to write about a trading system that's combined with environment. So how this would actually change. Okay, 3 minutes. 3:56. The rest online, deliberate on this alone, no choice. Unless you have WhatsApp group. You might want to form WhatsApp group among yourself. Go ahead. I don't care. You want to turn to the back, the lady here, turn to the back and discuss with the guy behind you. The lady behind, can you come, or the two of you join her behind and discuss? Yeah. So you two, then you three, can? What exactly was mentioned that is telling that Britain will be taking leadership, the leadership role? Okay, the video is here. 2 weeks ago, Peterson Institute for International Economics, the current state of the world trading system. What can Britain do? Okay, so you can go and listen to it again.
Good to be with you today at the Margaret Thatcher founders.
You go to
There's a
YouTube, you
need to have
can get it.
again a dispute settlement system that is
2
binding
weeks ago.
and recognized as legitimate by all. There is a need to have an institution with a strong executive to achieve full transparency. As Brexit was occurring, I had the privilege of being called upon to give my views on the proper role of an independent Britain in the world trading system. I testified before the International Trade Select Committee of the House of Commons. I met with officials of the Foreign and Commonwealth Office and at number 10 Downing Street.
What the hell?
There was a reasonable concern then that the views of Britain might not count for much, given the much larger shares.
Okay, anyone can tell me what exactly was mentioned to tell you that, or two
the
things
United
I would
States and
say.
China.
Give you a hint. Two things
What I
that
said
were
to
mentioned
the
that
people-
tell you Britain would take the leadership role.
I met with is that when I first attended GATT
Anyone?
meetings in the early 1970s,
I can't hear you, it's muffled.
I heard that independent, strong, and articulate voice of the United Kingdom. And while that voice had been of value in Brussels for the last 40 years, I very much welcomed its return to the deliberations on global trade
so
now at the W.
What is it that was emphasized in the COP26? That is where, yeah? Climate change. Okay. Okay, you link that to trade then, what is that primary factor then are we looking at? Sustainable development. So, and on the trading side there, okay, good, very good. So on the trading side here, how do you see Britain taking leadership role? It was also mentioned there. Why you all look at me like, I hate this guy. Especially that lady there in the chair. I hate him. Give me a chance, I punch him. Give me a gun, I shoot him. But never mind, I'm just
The
trying
world
to
trading system that we benefit from is very much a heritage of the partnership of the United States and Great
Can hate me
Britain,
now, it's okay. But later
based
you'll
on the
love me in
same
September,
vision
you're
that
like,
Margaret
I like
Thatcher
your
enunciated.
class, as usual. Okay, so what is it on the trading side that you see Britain taking leadership role? It was mentioned. Where is Yong Sing? Yong Sing, keep quiet, Yong Sing. Oi, Yong Sing. What is it was mentioned? So COP26 is sustainable development. So we have to care more about the environment. We have to prevent a climate crisis. Or even if we are in it, we have to start to mitigate the effects of climate crisis. So what's the other side? Very important. I say to you and I say to the other class, I don't think so anyone who study IPE at this point is talking about this. Even when I go to NTU Rajaratnam there, they're talking about newer order, this, that, but nobody's talking about this. Okay, so your answer is going to be very exciting. What's on the trading side there? Anyone? Yeah? No idea. No idea. Anyone? Really no idea. No idea. Okay. So you understand that this TPP going on, right? There was going on right now. And when Donald Trump came, he canceled it. Okay, then they changed the acronym to, what is it? CPTPP, all this bullshit, all these change. But who will replace United States in that CPTPP? Huh? Again? Britain will be the one that will be taking leadership in terms of policy, not in terms of this economic might. Okay, so in terms of policy, Britain will be the one spearheading all these policy initiatives there for the CPTPP. And if I'm not wrong, Britain is very good at diplomacy. If they can bring whole China to the table there and negotiate and agree, that is the starting point for globalization again. You cannot leave out China in whether it's at this stage or the next stage of globalization. Okay, you have to have China in it. Why? Because the pivot to Asia, you can transform it from conflict to what? Cooperation. So Britain is very good at such shit. Okay, very good with diplomacy. And I would say if you put the two together, they will come up with policies that you're going to bind trading system and sustainable development. Unlike before, where international trade has actually worsened the climate crisis, or the climate problem worsened with the trading system that we were in. That single undertaking that we have been talking about, or we will be talking about. So the single undertaking is an institution, rules, and norms whereby, okay, developed countries will force developing countries to open up their economy. So in doing so, they created a global production network. But they are exploiting the land, affecting their climate, depleting all their resources. So that's why we have reached at this point a climate crisis. Okay? So it's very important to take note of that, because only then you can appreciate this video much better. Because what you're saying is like, oh my God, this old man again. All these old people like to talk shit, hey, oh people, why don't we have like a social activists, make a lot of noise and the revolution come. But the truth is, there's a lot of stakeholders in this global economy. So no matter how you have this people's revolution, the people who control the world economy will go for industrial revolution. So the industrial revolution will bind the trading system and the initiative for climate improvement rather than climate crisis. I would put it as climate improvement initiatives. Why they use the word crisis? Because we see a lot of floods. But we are also, at the same time, if you look at it from the other side, on the flip side, it's climate improvement initiative. So a lot of people don't understand this. Maybe when we discuss about environment, we only look at flood, look at the air, but a lot of people don't look at noise. They don't observe noise as a problem. Okay, but if you go to all these developing countries, right, the people there lack of sleep because it's very noisy with all these industries coming up. Okay, so you got to put a lot of things together moving forward. So one of those things all those industries that you can actually aim to go into will be climate improvement sector. Don't look at climate crisis because you are not an engineer. Climate improvement sector will be new sectors that we should look at. What are climate improvement sectors? Even in the Channel News Asia come out that people it's too noisy. Singapore is too noisy and all these things. So what are the kind of things like your window might have new features so that it doesn't it can absorb the sound and all these. A lot of flats in Singapore, they are next to the road. These are all very bad. It's the dust and the sound. These are all is actually part of the climate crisis. Well, although we only see that very small. But for developing countries, if you have gone to developing countries and take the train, you see people live next to the train track, the railway track. And that is not a good thing, For us, it's like, yay, hi, I'm here. But actually, what? For these people, they are having a lot of issues, You don't see it only. Their life expectancy will be shorter. But actually, their health are badly affected, see? So you can see that the quality of life in Western countries, they don't have a train track next to the house and people wave when your train pass. You don't see all these things. They consider all these issues already. So there's an inequality in that sense there. Okay? So beyond that, okay, so you need a more gracious government, which is like the United Kingdom compared to the United States. United Kingdom a bit more gracious. I studied in two places, I can tell you. United States is more democratic, as in freedom of speech. You can, start shooting and blah blah blah. But United Kingdom not so aggressive, but the people are more gracious compared to United States there. Okay, so I hope you take note of those two things. You bind the trading system and the climate improvement initiative together as the new world order. They need to heal two things: the trading system and the developmental projects that the World Bank has been promoting. So you can see there will be changes on the World Bank as well, because they need to bind the two together. It's not just about infrastructure only. It must be sustainable at the same time. Okay, so if you do study, if you go to Asian Development Bank, some of you want to focus on Asia itself. They also have scholarships for people, and they do study on infrastructure. So you can see a shift is coming. Infrastructure provisions that will definitely consider climate improvement initiatives there. Okay, so if you go back to 1934, at this point in time, we are back to 1934. Although it's going to be recommending a lot of Margaret Thatcher's recommendation or what she was trying to promote, right? We still have to go back to 1934 because we have come to this point where interdependence have broken down. And to restart, you cannot start with institutions with norms and rules, because people are like, still not too sure. We need to go back to the treaty, or an agreement here. Okay? So the COP26 is actually a form of treaty or agreement, but not institution. You have 197 parties going there, enjoying the weather of Glasgow, but at this point it's so damn bloody cold, so I wouldn't enjoy it. Okay? You go to Glasgow there, maybe you enjoy your Guinness. Yeah, Guinness, yeah, that's very good there. Okay? And then they will start to start discussing and start negotiating on reciprocity here. So in 1934, during the Great Depression, okay, there was a discussion to change hands or change leadership. That means from Britain to the United States, based on this act. I repeat myself. In 1934, there was a discussion to change leadership. The world will have a new leader from Great Britain to the United States. But then you need to start out with an agreement first that America will take leadership, will exercise leadership in a trading system, subsequently in an international monetary system. Okay? So what is it that they were trying to pursue? The most favored nation. The most favored nation, what does it tell us? Is most important. If you just go right to this, okay, it's not here. Where is it? Oh. Okay. The most favored nation, maybe I should tell you now. It's to exacerbate multilateralism. Okay, let me just put it in very simple terms for you. What this most favored nation was trying to do or did in the end was that if you deal with one country, let's say I'm United States, and I trade with you, we have an agreement on how the trade should be. Okay? You are, let's say you're China or you're India, you must have the same agreement with my trading partners. Which means to say, the Chinese and the Indians must have the same agreement as the agreements I have with my trading partners. I, United States, must have the same agreement and accept the same agreement that China and India trading partner has with India and China. Which means to say there is a lot of compliance there. Very similar agreement there. So if I accept whatever we agree, and you accept whatever I agree, we accept whatever our trading partners, whatever agreements we have with our trading partners. And your trading partners cannot reject whatever I want, because it's the same anyway. So they cannot say, if China agree with United States, Pakistan say, no, I don't agree with you. I only agree certain things with China. No, but because we are most favored nation, it has to be the same. Whatever I agree with China, okay, Pakistan must agree with me, because you are trading with China. If you have special trading, I don't care. But whatever agreement I have with China, Pakistan must agree also. Okay? So if Singapore and America has an agreement, okay, so and China and America has an agreement, Singapore will accept what China and America has agreed. That's how you start your interdependence, or what is known as multilateralism. Ken? Did you get that? If not, I will repeat myself. Did everyone online get it? So all these interdependence that you talk about is not like, oh yeah, the world is small, yeah, but there's something that was, if you unpacked it, The whole thing is underpinned by one factor: most favored nation. The word most favored nation can be quite misleading, the sound, or the name, sorry, and most favored nation. They're favored, but not really so much as favored. It's more like creating that compliance in order for multilateralism to spread across the global economy. So once everyone has come to a particular kind of consensus there, okay, so you basically you're trying to bind everybody together. Once everyone has reached that point, then the global economy will have more trade. Got it? You see more movement of goods, more movement of services, and more movement of people, because these are all rules and norms. So that was all working towards one day we will create an institution. That's the WTO. Okay, so you have to get people comfortable first, and then when you institutionalize it, all these things that are happening, then it's not so disruptive, it's not so abrupt. You're not taking a leap forward. So what you're seeing at the COP26, they're going through that process again of agreement. And that's going to take a long time before we reach that level of trust. And then we will start those institutionalizing the rules and norms. Okay? So maybe by then you should be about 60 or 70 years old. By then I am dead, most likely. If I'm alive, maybe I'll be like Henry Kissinger, the world is a better place now. And America and China. Oh no, now it's Britain and America. And bring the world forward further. Okay, so you're going to see this for the next 40, 50 years. And is it going to be challenging? It depends on the Singapore, the government that we see. Okay, but then at the same time, if we look at regionalism, or I want you to look at the 17 goals of sustainable development. Can you just type UN SDG? UN SDG, United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. There are 17 goals there. This is the trick. This is the important part that you need to know. If you are looking at Singapore, or you're looking at an authoritarian state there, okay, if you're living in a country that is under an authoritarian government, the government needs to reform as well. So it depends on what you like. If you like authoritarian government and you're making a lot of money out of it, then it's good. But if you do not like it and it needs to change, then you like it. Okay? So I want you to consider the 17 goals. So we'll look at development, we'll come back to that. Okay? So I'll remind you again that sustainable development is the next big thing, not just by saying it. It must be bind, okay, with the trading system. So if you want to study trade and development, the very reputable university in the UK will be Manchester University. So they will start to look at sustainable development and trade. Okay, so they have a master's in trade and development. Just masters on it, trade and development. You don't. You have a bit of economics. You have all these development initiatives. You can be sure they have those research institute. You might want to look at their website and see whatever initiative they have. Okay, so why I'm saying this is that Britain is going to be the leader in terms of policy. So you can be sure Manchester University will be one of those universities that will be doing research on this. Okay, so I want to tell you something. When you go to England and study, please don't just study because the brand is very good. You go Oxford, Cambridge, they may not be doing what Manchester is doing. So depending on your focus there. Okay, if your focus is trade and development, Manchester. If you look at globalization and regionalism. I think it's Sussex University. So they specialize in different things. They have different clusters there. Okay, so 1934 is the part where we look at, is the starting point of how they start to elaborate, okay, because it was at its lowest point in terms of trade. So are we in the same situation now? We can say it's post-neoliberalism already. So it is also the same. So you're very lucky to go through this. Imagine you were like a student of IR 6 years ago. Whatever I say to you is like, come on, this guy is damn disgusting. When I first came here, they were all complaining, why they call this guy is talking rubbish. Because I told them, a crisis is coming. You're going to see that global trades will start to roll back. And they look at me. At that time, Lee Kuan Yew just passed away. So everybody's like, yeah, Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew, Lee Kuan Yew. Today, who talks about Lee Kuan Yew? No more. No more. Because it's over. Whatever he says is over. Okay? So for me, the inflection point was the global financial crisis. But they don't look at it that way. They say global financial, PAP very good. The economy, no problem. The property price go up. Go up. But it doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that the global economy will go up. It got worse. Okay? So now we are at the lowest point. Okay? So it's the same. If you just put 1934 and 2021, the same. So I hope you take note of that. 1934 and 2021. 1934, in the United States of America, in Congress, they have this Reciprocal Trading Act. Okay, RTAA, Reciprocal Trade Agreements Act. Okay, agreement. It's not an institution. So in Congress, they were saying, okay, let's try to overturn the tariffs that led to the war. Now, the COP26. Okay, guys, let's go back to what Margaret Thatcher was saying. Let's go back to what before the trade war between United States and America. Okay, but this one is very interesting. You see, that time was the United States saying that. This time, the British are saying that. Got it? Do you get it? You get it? So when people tell you British education is over, right? That was during Lee Kuan Yew's time. Lee Kuan Yew saying, I used to admire the British, but then, it's a lost empire. If he's alive, right, I think he will change his word again. Oh, I used to study in Cambridge. It's a very great institution. We still send our scholars there. So you must understand, this guy is a compliance officer. So today, Britain, he speaks British accent again. Today is America. He will speak like Henry Kissinger, like that. Okay, so he will change. Okay, so we are in a process of overturning the tariffs. I don't see you're gonna increase tariffs among the allies of United States and America. I will say that one more time. We are gonna see a reduction in tariffs among the trading partners of United States and United Kingdom. But we are going to see the Cold War intensifying between United States and the United Kingdom. On the other side will be Russia and China. So this 1934 was also in preparation for a Cold War, which is the 1945 Crimea, where Britain, United States had an agreement with Russia. Then they will have the Soviet Union there. But this time round, I'm not sure when they're going to have this agreement. Okay, where is it going to be? 45 was Crimea, Russia, United States, United Kingdom. This time, Russia, China, United States, United Kingdom. So 2 against 2. So it's like wrestling tag team. Okay, 2 against 2. Okay, you can see the maneuvers. It's very obvious already. So they're going to draw the line. Your allies, my allies. Okay, so within the Anglo-Saxon trading system, I'm not sure if it's 2/3. I think this time it's going to be greater than 2/3 because you're going to add the European Union, okay, that has already absorbed Eastern Europe, okay, and possibly will prevent Russia from taking Ukraine, okay, and whatever, former Yugoslavia, all they're going to bring them in. So the world for the Chinese and the Russians will be Central Asia, all these other countries there. And perhaps the contest will be Africa. So Africa will have to choose whether you want to be on the Russian-Chinese side or the British-American side. Okay? And in between will be the European Union. So the European Union will be the third force, I would say. The European Union will be the third force in this international security arrangement. So what I'm talking to you now is not just trade itself. If you understand if you listen carefully, I'm telling you what is happening within the spheres of international security. So you need to bring that in your exams. Okay? Do not just write trade itself or just politics itself. You got to bring them in and provide an analysis there. Do you get that? Anyone needs me to repeat myself? Because this one, right, is very complex for a lot of people. For the economists, they'll be like, what the hell is going on here? Suddenly you have Soviet Union and China. I thought the rise of China will always rise. Yeah, although Britain will take leadership role at the CPTPP, okay, that itself is just trade. But if you incorporate what's happening in international security, they will not allow China to join the CPTPP. That's my argument. And if China were to join the CPTPP, that means there isn't a Cold War at all. Or they are able to manage the expectations, which also will mean you will prevent the trade war between the United States and America to escalate. But that is unlikely. Based on history, 1945 Crimea, they would draw the line. They would draw the line. Okay? They would draw the line. Okay, so next week when we discuss about regionalism, now whatever we are discussing now, next week you have to consider China as a regional power. Can it be a regional power? There are 4 levels to it, so we'll look at it level by level. Okay? Any question so far? Before I move on. No question. Young Sing? Young Sing, no question. No question, wow. But I got a question for you. Later. Okay, never mind. So there will be a point where you see institutional change. Okay? And where is it going to be? This time around, WTO. Last time, no WTO. We already have WTO. This time around, the rules and norms of the WTO will change. Okay? At that point in time, they were trying to create an institution whereby you transform that agreement into an institution. But now we already have that institution. I think it's an easier job. But the problem is the trust. The trust is not there, it's gone. Okay? So they will try to restart by looking at the institution, what needs to transform. I'm not saying that everything will be transformed, but there are areas to change. And that in itself tells us that there is hope. But that in itself also tells us that what we discussed about globalization, it reiterates one thing, the recurring pattern of liberalism to mercantilism to liberalism to mercantilism. So maybe when you are in your 60s and 70s, you see another trade war. Maybe. Maybe you don't get to see because the last time round was 45 to 2015. 70 years from today, you are like 90 something. Maybe you'll be the Henry Kissinger. The world is. Okay, maybe. I do not know. But if you take 70 years as the precedence, right, then you'll be in your 90s. Okay, I'm definitely dead. If I'm alive, right, oh my God. I'd rather die and reincarnate, be a young person by then. Okay, so get ready for institutional change. You can be sure that James Morrison might draw comparison between the Bretton Woods institution and what lies ahead. So this is your starting point, 1934, and today COP26. I repeat myself one more time. 1934 as your starting point to compare that and COP26 2021. Okay, that you can see what was not the focus in 1934. What was not the focus then was sustainable development. Because the environment was not that bad. It was still okay. A lot of margin. A lot of countries were poor. China went right down. Europe went right down. The whole of Asia, you should know, this part of the world, everybody was still fishing, enjoying. Our grandfather was like having 3 wives. Like my grandfather had 3 wives, 22 children. Okay, enjoying his sports car going around, maybe officially 3 wives, unofficially 27 wives, I also don't know. Okay, so the world was very different. But this time around, the population is like 8 billion, way bigger than then. So you have to deal with it very differently. And this time around, no different from then, is pandemic. You need to do cross-examination in that sense there. Okay? So you're going to see a transformation, okay, in the direction of not just the American trade policy. You're going to see a directional change in terms of trade policy for all countries. Not just focusing on free movement of people, free movement of goods, okay, and free movement of money. There's one more thing that you need to consider and add, not just consider. Whether whatever global production network, movement of people, will it be part of that climate improvement initiative? If it undermines it, then we are in deep trouble. We need to stop that. Okay, so that's why I'm saying you don't need to be an environmentalist to study this. From your perspective, you want to understand it from the IPE perspective. How would any trading, any monetary system change, right, in it, would contribute to the climate improvement initiative outcome? Okay, so you should look at it that perspective. Stay on the positive side. Please don't go and listen on YouTube or the Marxist kids saying revolution, revolution, revolution. So stay on the Marxist capitalist side. There will be industrial revolution instead, where we will look at initiatives based on climate improvement. And then you will always be on the bright side. Okay, that's my take. Some people want to stay dark, go ahead, like I'm Batman, superhero, a Superman, wear underwear on the outside, and the cape fly and help you. That's a bit tough, okay? Because the whole world is so used to the capitalistic development of industrial revolution. Okay, so if given a choice, right, all governments, right, should think like that. Then I think it will be easier to get out of the situation instead of blaming each other. So if you ask me, what's that saving grace? What is it that can salvage this global economy or globalization and bring it to a better world? It is the Climate Improvement Initiative. And that you reduce inequality, that you change, you see a dramatic shift in the global production network. And you also see that people roll back protectionism because it's actually helping their economy. When you're looking at the environment, improve the environment, how can it not be helping the economy? Okay? The environment is indicative or a signal of the state of your economy. For example, I go to Philippines. Let's go go Davao. Wow, Davao quite rich, you know. Then I go other places, right? Wow, you see the people like the world of difference, man. Okay, the Taiwanese go there and buy all the fish. The fishermen just depend on it, but then the depletion of the fish, one day they'll lose their livelihood. Okay, but if it's gonna improve the environment, that means there will be replenishment of the fish in the ocean. The people will still have their livelihood. They will have a better living as well. Because once the depletion of the fish in the ocean is over for them, it's depleted already, right? You're going to see crime, you're going to see a lot of things there. So the environment is an indication of the state of your economy. Okay? Yes. Yeah, the inequality will remain. But you will remain, yeah. But it's not as wide as it used to be. Why is the inequality? What's the difference in the inequality? Is the information asymmetry in terms of industries, the kind of output, products that come out. You still see America's Silicon Valley coming out with all the great ideas. But when they outsource to these countries, in developing countries, they cannot just focus on exploiting. The hierarchy will be there. That's for sure. But it cannot be as what it used to be. Because you see that the dramatic shift is all digital already. There's no real labor kind of thing. The exploitation will be reduced. Actually, they are prepared for this already. And to me, right, the COP26, right, is just like talking, but they already have everything in place already. And it's very clear in terms of exploitation, it'll be lesser because they don't need cheap workers anymore. They're saying it because they don't need it. Okay? So the Climate Improvement Initiative is a new industrial revolution that's coming up. Hmm. The developing countries will have to think of new ideas, no? Like birth control and all these things. So, because very strange, no? Poorer people have more children. Richer people have lesser children. Yeah? You just go to Singapore, you know already. The poorer ones, right, wow, they have 7, 8 children. But the rich one is like, oh my God, it's taking up my time, man. 1 kid, that's it, enough. Full stop already. 2, oh my God, I got no time already. 2, okay, maximum 2. But in developing countries, they're like so free. Having 7, 8 children. So the developing countries, this is the time that the government's initiative of poverty reduction and the role of women, all these will come into place as well. Okay, so you got to understand that from the perspective of development. So that's why I'm saying to you, you go to Manchester University, they got all these things layer by layer and layer and layer and layer to explain to you the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So you bring in all 17 goals together. The state has to work harder, really harder. The developed countries will have one challenge, is that MNCs that are so used to exploiting and always having very high profits, that means their stock market prices, the stock prices keep going up, will have to go through a situation now, rethink it, and say that we will have to have lesser profits now because there will be lesser exploitation. Okay? They cannot drive growth based on outsourcing, cheap labor, cheap land. All that is gone already. That's how the MNCs grew exponentially. Okay, so this is the money part where the developed countries have to face. Okay, and at the same time, the developed countries will also have to face with an issue. Maybe it will help them. Their jobs may not come back to their country like what Donald Trump said. There will still be polarization within their economy because of this new technology called artificial intelligence and blockchain. So you see, the world will still have many challenges. But in a bigger picture here, okay? So I say to you, IPE is like macro, right? You will first reduce the inequality between the developed and developing countries. Okay, so Wallenstein said that there are three things that can never be wished away: polarization, hierarchy, and exploitation. There will be all these three, but there will be lesser of it. So remember what he said is very, very important. So when you're writing, right, you use these three. Okay, hierarchy, exploitation, polarization. So you're going to see a dramatic shift in the global production network. You're going to see a global shift, a dramatic shift in a work-life arrangement as well. Okay, you're going to see all these things. This is very complex because the world is very complex anyway. So, but I hope you understand. I hope you can understand, grasp with what I'm trying to say, because you have seen that inequality, the rich and the poor country. Okay, now how are they going to bring it less unequal? It's the notion of sustainability. So you have 7 goals that you need to address. So if you ask me, right, the alternative to Singapore government, an alternative party, is to look at the 17 goals of the United Nations. And then you can take the PAP to task. That's how I would argue. Because they have not reached all the 17 goals. So you want to be an alternative government, it's very simple. You just make them work harder by pushing for that 17 goals of the United Nations, the Sustainable Development Goals. Okay, and one of the goals will be coalition government. Oh my God, that's something that they cannot accept. They cannot accept a coalition government. You look at the way they talk. Okay, a committee of inquiry becomes like a court case like that. They interrogate you like you're a criminal. So if it's a coalition government, you think you can behave like that. You can't behave like that, you see. Okay, so you're going to see shifts. So your job is to talk about shifts. How they shift. The shift and the outcome of reducing inequality. Okay? And the most favored nation will be reevaluated. We do not know what will come up next. It didn't work out with that old order, the neoliberal world, where the unipolar world of the United States of America. That will be gone. So that multilateralism, okay, where I agree with you, I also have to agree with your trading partner, all that, that will be gone. You'll be replaced by sustainability. I repeat myself. The most favored nation, okay, that actually underpins multilateralism will most likely be replaced by sustainable development. So hopefully we can have that kind of most favored nation, but that will not take precedence anymore, because that has actually resulted in exploitation, more exploitation. So you want to reduce the exploitation, reduce the inequality, you replaced it with sustainable development. Okay? You'll still be consensus, but the focus will be different. So you see that shift come with sustainable development taking precedence there. That's how the shift will take place. Any question that you want to clarify? Please clarify me now. Okay, this is the first time I'm saying this because COP26 happened this year. So I can say this to you. If it didn't happen, I say people think like, this guy is mad, I keep talking about all this. But this, I already have this in mind already. That at some point, Britain would take leadership. And that in itself, America would take a step back, supporting Britain's leadership. In 1934, Britain took a step back, America took a step forward. Okay? So you see that in the international monetary system, there will also be shifts. When you see this happening here. What's the shift? Britain has 6% of the world's transaction. And Britain's main trading revenue, you know is which one? Anyone? What is Britain's trading main revenue from trading? You think about it for 1 minute. Are developed nations obliged to help developing nations? They are not obliged. But if you look at sustainable development, then more likely than not, you are not going to harm them rather than develop. And in itself, you are not going to exacerbate or accentuate inequality. Mr. Chia, did I answer your question? You can help yourself. Can? So if you go by international rules and norms, it is like an implicit obligation that you don't exploit people. And if you do exploit people, you will be under a lot of scrutiny in a new arrangement. So what would you see in the international monetary system? Will you see the British pounds coming up very strongly? I think so, So I've been saying all this for 5 years. Since the Brexit. First thing Brexit, British pounds. Wow, the thing dropped. Wow, best, man. I love Britain, man. God save the Queen. But if the Queen is gone, you bring Prince Charles, it's okay. The British pound is going to come back very strong. Okay? And there's a reason why Britain never gave up their currency. This is the day that you need the British pounds again. If Britain had joined Euro and gave up their currency, it would not happen so quickly. So without joining Euro, without giving up your currency, you can just say, have a referendum, get out of Europe, now we can start. Okay? God save the Queen, let's go. And they did it within a few years and they just got out of it very quickly. If it's in the Euro, wow, it's very complex. It's a lot of things to dealing. A lot of institutional arrangements have to be remake and renegotiated. Oh my God. I can imagine the amount of chaos in the European Parliament. Okay? So, if you look at the international monetary system, there will also be shifts. And that in itself, you don't be surprised that Britain will steal some business from China. Don't be surprised. Of course, China will not want Britain to steal its business, but then there will be resistance. But instead of United States confronting China itself, Britain being able to court the countries that in CPTPP would actually push China back. And that itself will also result in a shift in the international monetary system there. Okay, which means that it limits China's ambition to make the renminbi as an international reserve currency. I repeat myself, if with this happening here, Britain taking leadership in terms of its trade policy, in terms of the CPTPP, it is going to limit China's rights. It's going to limit the ambition of China in making the renminbi as an international reserve currency. Okay, and Britain would actually will partner someone, and has been an enduring partner for a long time. Who is the partner? In Asia itself, in the Pacific. Japan, yeah. So that in itself, Britain will share power with Japan in this CPTPP. So Japan is part of it, right? The CPTPP. Yeah. So this is how I would look at it. So you have to bring in the international security, and then you look at the trading system, how it shifts. Okay, the initiative of the COP26, and of course you look at the initiative as in the trading system, CPTPP. Then you see how everything will unfold. So there's the reason in hindsight you see Brexit very differently today as compared to 2016. 2016, Brexit was viewed as what? Can anyone tell me, how do you view Brexit in 2016? Yeah? Protectionism. Or what? How do you view British people? Anti-immigrant. Yeah. So Singapore doesn't like that, because Singapore is just stuck, cruise control in the old order. Everything just yes sir, yes sir, yes sir. Okay. So that itself, now if you 6 years later, you just only 6 years, you can see it immediately. So history is very important for you to look at. So in 1934, we have that, and now we have a different situation. So I don't need to look at all these things here. These are numbers. Okay. And then after that, after several rounds, the GATT was superseded by the WTO. So I've explained to you, it was working towards that, the formation of an institution, which you all study as IO. Okay, so if you look at IO on the surface, without looking at its historical development, it can be quite shallow, because you will be like, I'm a liberal. But you look at what actually developed, what happened in the international security, then IO gives you another perspective there. And how it will shift is based on international security. So put it in a very, in a nutshell for you, you got to look at it from the perspective of international security first. Then you look at trade, and you look at the monetary system. I repeat myself. For IPE, you should look at it from the perspective of international security first. Then it's like the lubricant of how the trading system and the monetary system will shift. It's the lubricant that will allow the shift. That's why it's in the IR program. It is not in the economics program. They welcome the economists to come, because economists only look at it with assumptions. When you have assumptions, they don't know how it shifts. But for politics, it's about the shift that is very important. And the shift comes from international security. So once the economists understand what's happening in the international security and consider it, then it makes a lot of sense to them. That's how I started. I was economics trained. Then, when I was exposed to the international security and international politics, I use it as a lubricant. And how you take away all these assumptions, it's a very dynamic world. So it helps you to understand what happened today, because in hindsight, you can see it. Then it gives you foresight. So when 2016, you have a Brexit, I already forecast that. And why would that be a Brexit? I look at what happened in the past and what happened in the international security. Okay? It's very important to look at it that way. Anyone got any question online? Okay, if you got any question, you just go online and you type your answers, because you might not want to speak to me directly. Because you're like, what, I want to fight? No, I'm not going to fight you. Okay, so it's a treaty, not an organization, and you must be very clear about it. Okay, so in your exam, we will look at how you shift from GATT to WTO. Very important. So the other thing that I want to tell you, when we consider or we bind the trading system and sustainable development, the new way of looking at trade will be this, managed trade again, which is back to Keynes. Back to Keynes again, no difference. Okay? The new emerging order. It was then like that. It will be like that again. Go back to managed trade again. It will not be like the kind of free trade that we see immediately. It'll take a while because the state still need to intervene in the domestic economy first. Then, but still, they will open up their economy for trade. But not like what you see with the neoliberal world. Wow, everybody have this most favored nation. They just open up without any consideration of state intervention. Yes. So sustainable development is going back to Keynes essentially. Yeah, never mind. It's okay. You can think whatever you want. Okay, it's good that you think. You don't think now, then you go exam and think you die. You think now. Okay. So managed trade is going to be what we've been discussing: ideas, institution, and interest. So it goes back to the interest, the board, where you try to look at different interests again. I've explained to you the interest. Africa's got its interest. Britain got its interest. United States got its interest. United States now more inward looking. A lot of people say they are more inward looking because they have no choice. They have to rebuild their economy. They have this infrastructure bill to rebuild their economy. And in any case, it is in line with this managed trade. Why? The infrastructure bill is an idea that will go to the institution. It's in the interest of America not to outsource so much to all these countries that they were outsourcing to. Why? Because they need to rebuild America and at the same time export to the world to make money again, like they used to do. What they did in the first era of globalization, they were a manufacturing base during the First World War. That's why they didn't participate in the First World War. They were the world's manufacturing base. That's why the Americans always say, we used to be a manufacturing base. Why can't we do it again? So the notion came up. Mr. Trump, make America great again. Actually, he was referring to the first wave, our first wave of globalization. Make America great again. But a lot of people look at him as xenophobe. Xenophobe. But then they had an agreement. You see, the Anglo-Saxon agreement was that we will look at sustainable development. But Donald Trump was not viewed as someone that will promote sustainable development. He was viewed as someone who will be creating polarization in the global economy. Okay? But in hindsight, if you look at Brexit and you look at Donald Trump and you look at what they are trying to initiate now, then it is not xenophobia. It's based on interest. They need to rebuild their country again. Okay? Only in hindsight you can see all these things. At that point in time, you'll be scared. Okay? Do you get that? No? So managed trade actually allows the state to intervene in the market. So if you study Keynesian economics, it's all about one of the main notions is government spending, which is actually managed trade. Infrastructure bill is government spending $1.2 trillion. That is managed trade here. America is not saying they will not import anything. But America wants to have government spending to develop their supply side economics. If you study economics, supply side economics is your capacity of the economy, the roads, okay, the ports, the schools. These are infrastructures very important to prevent bottlenecks. If you do not have enough roads, don't have enough ports, then what will happen? You have a lot of bottlenecks in your economy. And you do not have those proper infrastructure, you can't implement 5G, you can't implement artificial intelligence, you can't implement electric vehicle, you can't implement a lot of things. So they need this for the next phase. Okay, it's in their interest to do that. Okay, so Singapore has always been Keynesian economics. Election time is the time you see the real Keynesians come out. Oh yeah, we're gonna push shelter, we're gonna put this, gonna put that, yeah, no, I'm gonna build bicycle, national development, a lot of things, What's next? I don't know what they're gonna do. Now you can just listen to what your MPs are talking about, already. We got new initiative to build, to go green, plant trees. I'm not sure, you go around, you hear your MP say plant trees nowadays. Oh yeah, we are very conscious about the climate. Don't bluff lah. Don't bluff. It's coming from United Nations Sustainable Development Goal. Okay, so these are the people who don't bend back, but they bend forward. Everything UN, WTO, World Bank, they just follow. Okay, so the strength of the PAP is actually compliance. They're very good at compliance. But they're so good, no. Okay, so good until you cannot win them at all. Okay, which means to say they're very good at bootlicking. Not to you, no, outside. But to you, they are very smart. Because you do not know what they're leaking out. Okay, so it's very different altogether here. Okay, so you have to look at this managed trade here. In those days, the 1945 Bretton Woods Institution were to promote all these things here. Non-discrimination, which is the most favored nation, reciprocity, transparency, and multilateralism. Will we change? Will all these change? No, this will still stand. All these 4 key principles will stand. But more important, the non-discrimination will not be in front, and multilateralism will not be in front. What will happen? They need to foster the most important thing is transparency and reciprocity to begin with. That's my own analysis. You can go and analyze differently here. I'm saying this, the 4 principles will be there, but I think with the COP26, if you bind the trade and sustainable development together, you need to promote transparency and reciprocity to begin with. Then it comes to the multilateralism and non-discrimination. Got it? I'm not saying the 4 principles suddenly no more. They still will stand, but the change is now you're looking at sustainable development here. Is Swiss neutrally similar to that of Singapore? What do you mean by neutrality? The Swiss neutrality, I think they are not so neutral as compared to Singapore. Or Singapore is not as neutral as Switzerland, I would say. Okay? Singapore is like, to me, the United States of America, nothing neutral. And Switzerland itself, they have their own industries, they have their own productive power. They have higher chances of being neutral compared to Singapore. Singapore has no productive power. Singapore's strength is services sector. Like I said, comply. Please, give me some, just give me some, please. Don't let that come. Chin, please. I want mask, can give me? Thank you. I need hand sanitizer. Okay, then come back. Give you free, give you free. I need a technology called Trace Together. So can you give me? Can. Yeah, understand. Answer your question, Suchi. So you want to see the neutrality, you got to assess the country's productive power. We used to be more neutral when we had productive power. But ever since we started to outsource, that means everything went to Temasek and everything, or they start to re-evaluate their investment portfolio, everything shift towards knowledge-based and services sector, we have become more compliant to what the MNCs want. Okay, and becoming more compliant in itself tells us they are less neutral. But Swiss, they don't need to be compliant because they can sell to the world a lot of things themselves. So in terms of neutrality, right, I wouldn't say they are not compliant. Switzerland. Say again? Yeah, the Swiss. The Swiss are the one that, started all these thing called wealth management. Not Singapore. UBS, yeah, they've been there for a long time. Last time they even have this thing about privacy laws. They didn't come out with this law yet. There are a lot of mafias park their money in Switzerland. You never know how much money they have until they change the rules because of transparency in the trading system there. The movement of money must be transparent. But Switzerland has its strength. They have, you'll be surprised, they have a lot of engineering. I'm not sure you've been to Switzerland or not. I went there 3 times. I'm like, how the hell this country actually survived so long? Oh, mountains all over the hell. And then they got underground civil defense. You know that civil defense is like, oh my God, like transformer like that from below. Oh, that's civil defense. Okay, they got engineering, they got watches, they got a lot of things there. Chocolates and all this. Singapore got what chocolate? I don't even see chocolate. Okay? How? Suchi got it? So I repeat the last part, very important here. I read that the Swiss has been practicing neutrality since the Reformation. Yeah, but then you really, I think you should not be read it on the surface. I think you should read deeper and say, look at their productive power. That allows the country to be more neutral. Okay, if Singapore has been producing things that like Sim Wong Hoo's creative technology been doing it, we have that productive power. We can be more neutral, but now we can't. We are very dependent on what's happening out there, which means to say you put it the other way around. If out there they don't like this government, which is they have placed themselves, they bind the state interest with their individual interests, right? All these ministers, they don't like this government, they can boycott this government, they're finished. That's all they need to do. Then the young people are like, yeah, let's start now, the politics. But now they are still getting recognition from the international community. But although it has declined quite somewhat, right? But still, they are still legitimate because they're still getting the recognition. Okay? The moment they boycott, just like how the Myanmar military been boycott, they're finished. Because the legitimacy of the military is that some people will say, just leave you alone. But if you boycott and you press harder, right? Then from within, you whack the top, you whack, one day you will see the combustion. Bah! Okay? So the same for Malaysia. From within, there were resistance when Najib was the prime minister. And the final one was what? International organization and news started pressing Najib. Why are you corrupt? Why are you putting money in China? The Chinese are corrupt. You corrupt. Right. Okay, so you ask me, right, Singapore, it's out there that will press the government here. The people, press. After that, they take Singapore Airlines, go somewhere else. They get depressed themselves. Okay? Okay, let's take a break first before we go on to